everyone. My name is Gbemi Disu. I'm Senior Vice President for Global Partnerships here at WorldQuant University. Welcome to Voices from the Field. It's a WorldQuant University series where we welcome brains from government, industry, and social sector on the front lines of finance and technology. Today, our special guest is Frank Lieber, a co-founder and CEO of AIVolve Leadership Dynamics, a leadership development provider empowering leaders to thrive in the AI era. Frank is also a personal friend. We both happen to have graduated from not just the same undergraduate, but from the same graduate program, Arizona State and Thunderbird School of Global Management, and we're both affiliated with WorldQuant University. Frank recently joined WorldQuant University as our academic advisory board member. Thank you so much for joining us today, Frank.
And thank you, Amy. It's great to be here.
Wonderful to have you. So today, Frank, we're going to be learning a lot about you. First, we'd love to kick off by asking you about your career journey. What have been some major events in your professional life that you would like to share with us?
All right. Thank you, Amy. Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Lieber. I am based here in Zurich, Switzerland. And I'm actually German American. So I grew up in Germany. I got my Abitur, which is equivalent to a high school degree, moved over to the United States, went to ASU, like Bami said, and I studied aeronautical management technology. I added my international MBA at Thunderbird, from Thunderbirds, and graduated in '96. So right after that, I joined various aerospace companies. There's one company I was with for 10 years, lived in Switzerland, Germany, and United States. Engineering services companies, IT services companies. I was also a founder of a couple of startups. So it is let's put it this way, different sizes of companies, different areas. And what I have done in 30 years almost of working experience, I've always been exposed to transformations. So from day one, operational transformations, all the way now to digital and AI transformations. So I recently also took a couple of executive education classes at Stanford and MIT in the area of AI and leadership, which were fantastic. And then we founded AIVolve Leadership Dynamics in Zurich in Switzerland 2 years ago.
Fantastic. So you obviously lead a global team. What gets you excited about working with people from all over the world?
First of all, when we were at Thunderbird, we got exposed to the global, working with global teams internationally all the time, right? With cross-cultural communication and so forth. So we learned a lot, especially in how to do business internationally. This is what really excites me. So our team is all over the world. We have a cross-cultural communication experts in the UK. We have somebody in Singapore. We're working with Bangladesh. We have Dubai, Africa, Latin America, USA, and then of course Europe here where we are. And it's just very interesting to see how everybody does business differently. And that's what you need to know. So when we go and talk to customers, we always have, we made sure that we have our homework done and how to do business internationally and be sensitive to the various cultures.
Yeah, certainly those cross-cultural classes with Professor Leclerc came in handy.
The
So,
best. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Do you have a guiding leadership philosophy that sort of drives you as you navigate these team dynamics?
Yeah. Let's put a little twist on this question because we're talking here about AI and also leadership in times of AI. So it's like there's one quote that I'm looking at from Jeffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize winner in physics, and he basically said, the most important question for humanity is how to control AI systems that are smarter than us. So this is the challenge, just to set the stage and frame it a little bit of where we're going. So there's a lot of uncertainty going on right now. So when we talk about leadership philosophy, it's actually be true to yourself. What you're going to run into is you're going to be challenged on a daily basis with lots of information. And there's going to be demands from organizations to meet your goals, to meet the KPIs, and you really have to be a responsible leader in these times of AI. Based on your strong ethics, you based on your strong values, what you grew up with from your family, etc. Take them into the workplace and just be yourself. So that's very important. And one other thing I want to add here is it's part of our philosophy as well. It is we live in a time which is absolutely dynamic. It's everything that we have changes every day. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there for the next generation. So it is a huge responsibility for us as leaders to bring the next generation along. We who are here right now in this technological revolution are going to be forming all of that, what our future leaders need in 10 to 20 years. So just keep this in mind. We have a huge responsibility right now.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I remember about 20 years ago when I was working with Chevron Texaco, actually before the AI revolution, my CEO at that point always said a good leader actually develops people who are smarter than them. And I thought that always stuck with me was never to be afraid of managing people who are probably already smarter than you or will eventually be smarter than you. And that always stuck with me was actually makes your life easier as a leader to have people who are better than you work for you. So it
Yeah.
makes sense now, but the difference that it's now machines that are doing this and are definitely smarter than us. So thinking through your sort of great career where you started obviously in aerospace and up to where you are now, what would you say is a career accomplishment that you're most proud of?
Yeah, actually, I'm living it right now. So what we're doing right now is, for the last couple of years, it's been just wonderful to see bringing all these various people together with their expertise, with my expertise of almost 30 years of experience and really having an impact. So this is for me like a real major accomplishment in my career. It's not, hitting the numbers or, reducing productivity. I mean, increasing productivity by 50%. That's, been there, done that. It is more like the purpose right now. It's like having an impact in this world. So this is actually one of the greatest accomplishments, which we're living right now. So this is the place to be.
So developing this company and what you're doing and kind of being purpose
Absolutely.
driven. Yes. Amazing.
Exactly.
Okay. So now let's flip the question. Can you think through your career and think through a low point and and let's talk about failure. What is something that you would consider a failure and what was your response to it?
Yeah. I mean, you really learn from the failures and from the mistakes the best, right? I mean, you have to make mistakes so that you can really learn from it. So, one is it's been a recent one, like 3 years ago, at a previous organization, we were just talking about AI transformation or digital transformation. And here in I was working for a German company here, and we saw from the field, the salespeople, new business development, lower management, middle management, we all saw that there are startups left and right coming now with Gen AI, moving into our area, into our customers, basically. And we saw that threat, had discussions at the board level and C level, and unfortunately, I was not able to convince them to put more money, invest more into driving this AI transformation. So that was definitely one of my biggest disappointments recently. But it is so important. You're not alone in this AI transformation. So actually, the positive thing about this is that I made that move to having basically our own company now and really driving that knowledge into the various organizations.
Now we're still on the fun questions. What's a
Okay.
fun, when you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do I do in my free time, basically, right? Next to building basically this company, which is a lot of fun. We just like to we enjoy traveling.
Yeah.
So that's the best. So we know we love to travel all over the world, and if possible, take the family along. So that is what we love to do. Just had a great journey with my son to Japan, to Tokyo, and took him to some business meetings, and yeah, it was fun.
That's great. It's always great to get the kids exposed early, right?
Absolutely.
What's a fun fact about you that might surprise your colleagues?
One fun fact is, how did I get my first job? So at Thunderbird, I used to play rugby. So we were with our rugby team on our way to North Carolina in a plane. I sat next to the biggest rugby player in our team. He took him like two seats next to one seat of mine. And we just started talking and talked about airspace. And he said, "Hey, I got a job right now with one of the companies in the United States. You know what? As soon as we land somewhere, let's see if we can get you an interview." Yeah, so we landed at a stop on our way to North Carolina. He got me an interview. I talked to the HR, and all of a sudden, I ended up in airspace. So that's what a lot of people don't know, how I actually got my first job. So it's all about the networking, the team, and sports, which got me to where I am now.
That's amazing. Definitely the power of networking, a key lesson for many people out there.
Absolutely.
You recently joined WorldQuant as our
Yeah.
academic advisory board
Yeah.
member. What attracted you to WorldQuant University?
Yeah. So what attracted me to WorldQuant Universities, being as an academic uh, uh, advisory board member, is it's when I usually look at companies that we work with or partners that we work with from our side, the vision needs to be spot on. If the vision is not spot on, you shouldn't partner. Let's put it this way. So with WorldQuant University, when we basically had discussions internally, it's really we're going in the same direction. So this vision of educating, leaving no one behind, and putting the human at the center is exactly what we do at Evolve Leadership Dynamics. So that's got me excited about WorldQuant University. So I'm looking forward to the next few months and years.
That's great. So now we're going to pivot and talk a bit more about what's in your wheelhouse, this notion of leadership.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
you talk to a lot of leaders in the work that you do at your company. What have you heard that's keeping them awake when it comes to this notion of AI? So you talked about this at your old company. They sort of missed the boat in terms of investing. As you're talking to more and more leaders who some get it, some are confused, some are sort of ahead of the curve. What keeps some of these leaders awake at night?
Yeah, so what keeps up the leaders awake at night during these times, right? The time
Mm,
of disruption, a
right.
new technological revolution, etc. So let's take a look at the various functions. Let's start with the functional leaders. So and let's take a look at sales and marketing. They're the ones basically, that are very, very excited about this new technology. So their question is, how can I drive sales with using all of this technology, generate leads and so forth? How can I be successful? When you take a look at IT leaders, what's very interesting there is a lot of the IT leaders are not prepared for an AI transformation. And very often, when you take a look at these organizations, and you've probably heard about it, the new role of the CAIO, the commercial AI officer, is being implemented in more and more companies right now. But how is IT, how's the IT leader going to get there, right? They're more responsible for CRM implementations, ERP implementations, and so forth. But how do I get a grasp of all of this AI transformation, right? So the, each function has their concern. Finance is looking at the numbers, right? What is going to happen with my investment? That's what keeps them up at night. And you saw all the bad press recently, right? So it's if 95% of the ROI, 95% of the projects in the first 6 months phase, according to MIT, it's not working, right? They're not having a positive ROI, that's what keeps the finance leader up at night. So function leaders all have their own issues. And
Mhm.
what also keeps them up at night is how do they work together? How do they collaborate? And we're kind of getting into this leadership style, a little bit. But then IT is not used to talk about a project or about a technological revolution like AI. And now all of a sudden they have it on their desk and they need to work with all the different departments. Right. So
Mhm.
huge challenge. How do we collaborate? How do we work together? So those are the functions. If you take a look at the board level, at the C level, same issue in regards to collaboration. What kind of a structure do I put in place? Should the CAIO basically replace to the CEO? Should we change the governing board? There's all these change questions, which are not really new, right? Change has been around, forever, right? Transformations. I've been doing this for 30 years. But these are the questions now with this new technological revolution. One thing that really concerns me when we take a look at the young leaders, and we've been having workshops all over the place in Bangladesh, in Dubai, and I'm going to use an example in Dubai for our young legal students. Legal law is definitely an area where there is a lot of fear, right? They don't know if AI is going to take over their jobs. So you have this dynamic. I'm in university now. I'm going to learn something, and 4 years from now, I'm obsolete. So the young leaders out there are very concerned. Are they going to have a job? And that's the dynamic, where we need to help in our positions, in our roles, in our leadership roles right now to give them possibilities for further their education and find the right job, right? In case they're running into this issue. So
Mhm.
that's a big concern of mine.
Yeah. What would you say is, how would you define a human hybrid AI workforce? What does that look like? And can you give an example?
Yeah. So what does the human AI hybrids workforce look like? So definitely AI is an assistant. Yeah. So that's what we need to understand. So we've been talking about, it's about AI is not a friend, right? And in some cases, AI is not a lover. We have these discussions going on right now, right? No, AI is simply an assistant, right? It's don't stop thinking, don't stop to think, right? Continue your critical thinking, right? Don't stop, don't rely on AI. Use it as an assistant, right? That's I think is the main message here, and leadership is driving towards that. I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's a new leadership style being called centaur leadership. So you have like the head is basically the human, the body is AI. So it's that
Mhm.
augmented leadership style. So think about it like that. I think it's a very nice visual picture. Um, for hybrid augmented centaur leadership.
Mhm. Very interesting. So that's sort of the future of what we're going to be
Yeah,
navigating.
yeah.
What kind of leadership mistakes, seeing that we're sort of now approaching this centaur leadership, there's a bit of fear in terms of sort of the young leaders coming into this space. What common leadership mistakes can you see happening in this AI age?
The leadership capabilities that we still have, they're not new. But what you're seeing is an emphasis on certain leadership capabilities in these times of AI. So we talked about collaboration, we talked about critical thinking, communication. That is a very, very important one. Actually, Cambridge calls it storytelling when they did their analysis. So communication, storytelling, very, very important in these times. Agility, adaptability, decision making based on data, right? So these are new Well, actually, let's put it this way. These are capabilities which are needed now in these times of AI. They're not new, but those are really where we're putting our focus on and where we're seeing a tendency. So if you don't have these, another big one, sorry, visionary. That
Mm,
is, if having this growth mindset is so important in these times.
mm,
So if you don't have these, right? If you're not a visionary, it's like, we're going to do, AI is going to go away. I've heard this before in business. AI is a fad. It's going to go away. If you
mm,
don't have this vision, you're going to have an issue.
mm. Very interesting. You've said before, a successful AI journey isn't a technical implementation, it's a human evolution. Can you decode that a bit? Like, what do you mean exactly by that?
When you take a look at the research that's being done by various universities and by various companies, um, we're basically seeing like 70 to 80% of the AI transformations are not meeting the ROI, or the press also says, they're failing, of course, And then we talked about the MIT, with a 95% figure where we're not able to go from pilot to scaling the AI project, So this is what we're dealing with right now in reality. So we're putting lots of money into this. And now that we're trying to figure out what the root cause is, in an AI transformation, why it's not working, technology, number one, it's technology's fault. Oh, you know what? Let's take a look at the data. We have bad data. The
Mm,
processes are not working. The organization is not there, and so forth. But nobody ever talks about the human element.
mm,
So if you talk about all the other things, right, and forget the human, and this is what we need to do, the human is going to drive this AI transformation. It's not the technology, it's the human that's going to do it. So that's what I mean. But the humans are very often not prepared to do so because
mm,
this is a new time. So depending on the country, there are countries which are running with this, United States and China. Take a look at Germany, for example, or Europe, very conservative. We have the EU AI Act, it's a different attitude, very conservative. Let the regulations take care of it, and then we'll follow. But this leadership development and getting the people ready, this people readiness part, that's what I mean. It's a continuous learning because the technology changes, it seems like almost on a daily basis.
mm. Very interesting. I think we see the same in when you look at the change management process, that you look at Carter's change management, or even when you look at mergers and acquisition, a ton of
Mhm.
those fail, not because the change, it wasn't the right thing to do, it's just people underestimate the
Yeah.
human element of it, or the people piece. Your company offers an AI readiness scan. Can you speak to that? And what's the biggest giveaway or what's the biggest sign that an organization isn't ready?
Exactly. So the AI readiness scan, or we call it the HARS, the Human AI Readiness Scan, is part of a methodology which Evolve developed. So when we go into these leadership classes or we go into these companies and train the executives, we start out with assessing who's actually in the room. Sometimes you see that a leader is coming with his team, so you need to find out a way. Well, where are they on these capabilities, on these soft skills needed in times of AI? So what we've done is, based on a lot of other assessments which are out there, we basically focus on these major core capabilities needed in times of AI. And we combine it with the pressure and the stress under, when a human is under stress, very often some of the ethical standards, the values are being neglected. So
Mm,
that flows into this harsh assessment, which is very good because it tells you, oh my God, I need to reach my goal. Uh, Forget it. I'm going to do whatever to get this AI project done to get my bonus, So it all flushes it out. And during this leadership training, and at the end, we combine it with an AI coach, which we also developed. Why? The reason why we did is, of course, there are coaches out there all over the world, the human aspect, But when you roll something out and want to scale, an AI coach helps you to scale, is constantly available and pretty much neutral. So, that's why we did it. So it's our whole methodology of assess, apply, and then evolve. That's what we call it at the end, the continuously evolving human aspect.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you sort of mentioned that ethical piece that's really key. So we can kind of pivot that to my next question about ethics. What are some ways that leaders, do you think, cross those ethical boundaries with AI, and how can we safeguard against those abuses?
Yeah. So I'm not talking about the software programming part of
Mm,
ethics, like setting the boundaries and so forth. What I'm talking about is the governance part. So
mm,
governance, that's interesting. When you talk about we see it in our workshops. There are 20 people in there. Each person has a different opinion about governance, right? So it's fluctuating as you go around the room with the students or participants. It's very interesting, and I think the governance is so much needed to keep us in line, put processes in place, maybe have a governance board, an ethical board, and so forth, incorporate it into your governance system and your governance structure and so forth. Because it is so new, right? The biggest advice I can give you is you're a leader, you're expert in your field, get advice. You cannot know everything by your own. You need to collaborate. Here we go to this collaboration again. You need to collaborate with somebody who is an expert in the EU AI Act, for example, if you're here in Europe. Or Dubai is adopting a lot of the EU AI Act standards. So, get your experts in place, let them help you build this governance structure and don't start from scratch. And the reason I'm saying is we have somebody who teaches governance in our team. She had to do it at a bank in the United States from scratch. No guidance whatsoever. And it took them a very, very, very long time. So if you want to save time, you know, get somebody from the outside to really do the governance piece for you.
mm.
But that keeps you in check.
Yeah. And it just varies globally, right? So it's best to sort of have local
Yeah,
experts bring in that expertise to
absolutely.
kind of move it along. Do you ever foresee a time when AI agents, everyone's been talking about agentic models, and do you ever see a time when AI agents will function as leaders?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion around are we heading towards a Terminator, the days of Terminator, right? There's a lot of discussion about it. It's I think it's a good graphic example to talk about. In my opinion, or our opinion, um, the absolutely human element, the empathy, the intuition, the big why, like the vision, that's comes from the human. That is not something that AI can do, right? So that is something to remember. You're in the driver's seat. AI is not in the driver's seat. Lots of discussion comments right now. If we don't do something about it and let AI do and the technology just do whatever they want to do, then we have an issue. So again, these are the times where we have a big influence we can create. It's up to us to basically, make sure that AI is an assistant.
So, what advice would you have for those who are afraid of that Terminator, for that AI, for the AI revolution? What advice would you have for both leaders or for managers or for those incoming
Yeah.
graduates about AI?
Yeah. I kind of mention it. There are certain soft skills needed in these times of AI. Get educated around those. Really focus on the visionary aspect, the growth aspect, the growth minds, the collaboration, the agility, um, adaptability, communication, everything what I mentioned already. If you really work on those, you're going to build up some resilience, right? And that's very important because we're getting a lot of information on a daily basis. What I'm personally doing right now, if you ask me, well, Frank, what are you doing? Right now, I'm detoxing on the information that's coming in. I'm literally leaving certain groups, where I was a part of, where I spammed every day. I'm leaving them, right? So I'm reducing my information intake. So it's just building this resilience that you can have a healthy mind. So that's what I'm personally doing because it seems that it's becoming way too much information, and the sides are building and are going at each other. AI is good, AI is bad, and so forth. And when you take a look at the data from the UN, the UNCTAD, the UNCTAD, there is definitely an increase of negativity right now.
Mm.
We're like at a 50-50 split right now in the United States, where 50% think it's positive, 50% it's negative, which is a shift. So it's turning more into the negative now. So yeah, that's what basically I can recommend. And that's what I'm doing myself as well.
Yeah. No, I think we were both obviously at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and a lot of
Mhm.
the one of the tidbits I got from that was fascinating was a lot of the angst and negativity comes from kind of the idea that AI is taking jobs, and actually the macro data shows that it's actually not solely AI taking jobs, but the fact that there have been some macroeconomic downturns in terms of
Mhm.
just the economics of life right now. And you're seeing in markets like India and Dubai, there's actually job growth, but in sort of
Mhm.
mature economies is where you're seeing the downward turn in unemployment, but that's not strictly AI to blame, but just simply the factors of that there's no growth in those markets generally. So I think
Yeah.
some of that is an interesting data set. But a quote that I do like that I heard, it's not AI that'll take your jobs, it's people who are familiar and able to leverage AI that will take your jobs. So
Yeah,
the
exactly.
ability to sort of hone in on those skills that people have
Yeah,
put at the side, those skills you mentioned, um,
absolutely.
collaboration, agility, critical thinking. These are those people call them soft skills, but really human skills to be able to leverage
Exactly.
those the information, to decode it, to apply it, to work with people, to negotiate, to understand global and cultural context have
Yeah,
now become now more than ever very
yeah.
very AI resistant skills to kind of robot proof yourself against
Right. Yeah.
losing your job in this sort of
Yeah.
transformation era. So it's been such a pleasure having you on our series today, Frank. Any
All right.
last words, any things you'll like to share with us before we wrap up our show today?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. I think what we really need to watch out for these times, we're able to create, wherever we're going to go in these days. That's very important to understand. Everybody of us basically has the power, to do something good. There's a lot of great projects out there, AI for good, etc. And if you just focus, and that's why I've heard a lot of leaders in Davos as well. Everybody focuses on hard skills. Everybody does it. All these universities are doing it right now. The ones that are going to differentiate themselves are the ones that are going to focus on soft skills and leadership skills and how to actually navigate in these times. So that's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways. And so yeah, so good luck, everybody. Enjoy your time at WorldQuant, and looking forward to hearing from everybody.